Is the Trump administration going to secretly bail out the AI industry? There's a huge bubble in AI right now where trillions of dollars are being invested in AI companies, but a lot of them aren't making any money or products of value. A lot of these companies are expected to fail. The investors are going to lose tons of money. Not to mention the fact that a lot of the investments in AI are circular and leveraged with debt, which presents the real risk that if some of these smaller companies fail, much larger companies will fall with them and crash the larger US economy. Now, in order to cover the investments in infrastructure that these AI companies have made, they'll need to make $2 trillion by 2030. But in 2024, Amazon, Apple, Meta, Microsoft, and Nvidia combined made less than $2 trillion. Trump's AI and crypto czar, David Sacks, initially opposed the idea of an AI bailout, but he reversed his position 3 weeks later, saying we couldn't afford to let AI collapse. Now, making taxpayers bail out massive corporations for their inability to compete is political suicide. So the Trump administration is trying to sustain the AI industry with federal contracts. Yesterday, Pete Hegseth announced that every employee of the Pentagon would be trained on Google Gemini and would have to find ways to integrate this into their workflow. But what's interesting is that studies have shown that 95% of private companies have failed to integrate AI into their workflows. But that's the point. The federal contract is there to make up for the lack of genuine demand coming from the private market. The Trump administration also launched something called the Genesis Mission, which calls for hiring American AI companies to build a massive government AI database to build AI models off of data that the government has collected on us. And this is really a double subsidy because not only are we paying AI companies to build a database we never asked for, we're also giving them access to what's being described as the world's largest goldmine of untapped data. Buying data is one of the biggest expenses for AI companies. So if we just open all the government databases so they don't have to buy data from private companies, that's obviously going to make these AI companies very, very rich. One of the reasons the Trump administration is so determined not to let AI fail is because the Trump family is personally invested in AI data centers and is building computer farms of their own. In 2008, they told us that the banks were too big to fail, that if the banks went under, there would be no one to foreclose on our houses or charge us 20% interest rates on our credit cards. So we, the taxpayer, bailed out the banks while the middle class got eviscerated and the banks got bigger than ever. Well, now that they're intertwining AI so deeply into the national security infrastructure, they're setting up the argument to say that AI is too critical to national security to fail. The executive order that announces the Genesis mission compares it to the Manhattan Project, the project to build the atomic bomb. And therefore, anyone that opposes the big tech takeover of our government will be accused of undermining national security.